Good morning. This is Arlan Suderman, Chief Commodities Economist at StoneX, coming to you from the trading floor about 9 a.m. on this Monday, November the 3rd, and it's day number 34 of the partial government shutdown. But USDA has indicated that it will release its monthly crop production report and WASDE supply and demand balance sheets on November 14th. Now, it was scheduled for November 10th, a week from today, but instead will be on November 14th. And so we'll be able to finally get USDA's actual estimates of what the size of this year's crops are, the revised estimates. This is going to be important. We've had private estimates coming out. In fact, StoneX's own private survey results will be coming out this afternoon. This will be the final of our monthly customer survey numbers coming out this afternoon. And there's other private estimates out as well, but it's USDA numbers that are considered to be the final numbers, or the expert numbers, the official numbers, if you will. And so the longer we go without having USDA numbers, the more risk there is that private estimates for a host of different things have varied significantly from where USDA is at. So that does open the door up for some type of correction in the market when we see that data on November the 14th. But that's better than having to wait till December. So we're looking forward to seeing that data from USDA at that time. USDA also indicated that several other reports will be released this month, like cattle on feed report, etc. And they're doing it, finding funding to do so. I think it's important, though, to recognize that typically USDA gets its develops its monthly crop production reports based on field scouts being out in the field, sampling the crops, weighing samples, and that's called their objective surveys. They combine that with subjective surveys, which are when they ask farmers, how much do you believe your crop yielded? This year, they won't have much data on the way of objective surveys. It's going to be relying primarily on the subjective. Now, that can be balanced out with, or corrected by, so to speak, by their quarterly stock survey of how many bushels are actually in the system on December 1, assuming that the government is open and that they're able to fund that survey on December 1. Those results being announced at their January report. And so they can put together what their survey says of production versus what the survey of stocks indicate is actually out there. And then they'll have to make some adjustments. Was their production estimate too high or too low? As you recall, last year, their January report, there was a discrepancy resulting in the largest reduction in yield on record for a January report. And we'd like to be able to avoid a similar correction this year. We'd like the USDA November production estimate to be relatively close to reality of where we're at. So we'll see how that comes together. But anyway, it'll give us a correction point and an update. We're still lacking the daily export sales flash reports. We're still lacking the weekly export sales reports and many of the other USDA data points. We are getting the EIA ethanol reports each Wednesday, giving us an idea how much we're using in ethanol, or of corn to produce ethanol. We're also getting the Federal Grain Inspection Service data each Monday, talking about how much grain has been inspected for export. Why is this important? Well, with the trade deal with China, which I talked about at the end of last week in a video that I made, we need to know how China is doing in living up to that agreement. And the key question is, are they going to buy 12 million metric tons of U.S. soybeans between now and the end of the year as they committed? Now, we know what what the White House thinks, that that's 12 million metric tons of new business. We still don't know if that's the way China interprets it. Is it 12 million metric tons in total for 2025? Because they had previously, earlier in the year, purchased 5.9 million metric tons of U.S. soybeans. If they interpret it as 12 million metric tons for the calendar year total, then that means we're going to fall short of USDA's export target. And if there's no adjustment, that's a big if there's no adjustment in the production side, ending stocks are going to push above 400 million bushels. But if in fact they agree that it's 12 million metric tons of new business, then we should be able to hit USDA's target. And if we do have a modest reduction in the size of the crop, things would be snug and sensitive to any type of weather problems that develop in Brazil over the next 60 to 75 days or in the US next growing season. And as I covered last week, I believe if that does mean that 12 million metric tons of new business and another 25 million metric tons next year, I do believe it helps support several million acres switching from corn to soybeans in the next growing season. But a lot hinges on how China interprets it versus how we interpret it on that 12 million metric tons to start things off. So we'll continue to wait for clarity from China on that as we go forward. Overall, as we look at where we're going, I think the key point to keep in mind also or to watch and monitor is going to be continued rare earth minerals and magnets, and do they lift the restrictions on those? The other thing is, when are they going to lift the retaliatory tariffs on U.S. ag commodities? We have no word that they have done so yet. So the soybean purchases that they have been made are expected or believed to have been by Sinograin, the state grain buying agency, which is essentially immune to those tariffs. And Sinograin buys for China's reserves. Now they can auction those reserves supplies back off to the crushers. But to really make this deal work, we need those retaliatory tariffs lifted and or waived, because until they do that, U.S. soybeans are going to be $2 to $3 more expensive than Brazilian soybeans, particularly after the big rally that we've had in U.S. soybean prices and the more than 25-cent decline we've seen in Brazilian basis here over the past week to 10 days. So we need to be able to see those tariffs come off. Now, there are reports and indications that China over the weekend was looking to buy some U.S. wheat. Again, that may have been Sinograin, and we need to see the tariffs removed in order for private buyers to be buying. But it's still a good sign that they're in there shopping for U.S. wheat. There's a significant potential for them on feed grains as well if they choose to do so, maybe as much as 20 million metric tons or more, again, if they choose to do so from us versus from somebody else or just pull from the reserves. We'll have to see how that plays out. But the opportunities are there for significant business with China. We just don't know if they're going to do it or not. The commitments that have been communicated to us is what I indicated on the soybeans. Plus, we've seen mention of grain sorghum, but no specifics on that from either side. And so we continue to wait on that. But this morning's word is that China is shopping, probably Sinograin, and the USDA has indicated that even with the partial government shutdown, we will have a crop report, but not next Monday as previously scheduled. It'll be a week from Friday on November 14th. So we'll continue to keep you updated as we learn more. This is Arlan Suderman, Chief Commodities Economist. Be sure to like and subscribe to continue to get these updates from the trading floor.